Hello everybody and welcome back to a brand new video. Make sure you smash that like button down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. So the Election Mafia is back. This time it's not with general election polling. However, it has everything to do with Joe Biden and his approval rating right now, because you see all these polls that come out that say Biden's got a 60% approval rating. Biden is at 61%. And these polls are being conducted in the worst way possible. These polls also are vastly oversampling Democrats, and I'm going to prove it in this video. And first of all, the idea that we'll have presidents with approvals in the high 50s for the near future, unless they do something immaculate, is just not true. We live in a very, very, very divided nation. Trump supporters are not going to say that they approve of the job Biden is doing in really any circumstance, and it's quite hilarious. And if they did, for some reason, he probably would lose support among the far left base in the process. So the idea that Biden has just a disapproval rating in the mid-30s, that would mean that about a third of Trump supporters do not disapprove of his job performance, and we know that that is not true. Maybe 10% here and there, of course, because some of the public is a little bit movable, but the idea that a majority of the Trump base and the Trump voters are saying that Biden is doing a good job is laughable at a very minimum. So The Hill comes out with this poll. Biden, it's 59% approval. Then we look at the actual poll. Look what's in the poll. Look at the sample. 3,253 individuals in the poll were Democrats. Just 1,706 of these individuals were Republicans. Now, keep in mind, this is an unweighted sample, but even so, the weighted numbers for the poll had it at D+9 when the 2020 electorate was D+1. And ultimately speaking, what do we see? We see the fact that his approval rating is 59 because of it. If you actually were to adjust it to where the electorate is in reality, Biden's 59% easily can turn into something like a 50% at that point. It's gaslighting. It's ridiculous. And in a way, it's borderline North Korea tactics that the election mafia is using to cover up for Joe Biden's actual approval rating, which, by the way, is not necessarily in the gutter. People are going to say, why does he even have a 10% approval rating? Because all the people that voted for him were just voting against Donald Trump. And that is true. That is true. But a lot of people that did that somewhat approve of Joe Biden and or have that herd mentality where, oh, no, gas prices, men and women's sports, no, that's not really their concern at the moment. And as we can see, you could look at the full aggregate here of Biden's approval rating, 52.8%. But you look at some of these polls, 54%, 59, 61 in the Hill. It's like, come on. And you look at the samples and they tell us exactly every single thing that we know. There's a vast oversample of either suburban independents versus rural independents, suburban voters versus rural voters, or Democrats versus Republican, left-leaning independents versus right-leaning independents. And as a result, these organizations have Biden derangement syndrome, but the other way. That means they will do anything to cover up for the guy. It's a little bizarre at this point, whether you talk about them trying to get rid of the dislike button because of the fact that a lot of people just don't like Joe Biden on the internet. They're doing everything possible to cover up for anything negative that gets said about their establishment guy. It's a little bit strange if you ask me. And trying to take out the outlier polls of the sample and just looking at the approval rating as it stands, it already goes down to 50.7. The disapproval rating goes from 41.3 up to 42.9. So ultimately speaking, it goes from +12 to +8. That doesn't even take into account polling bias in the past from what we've seen. If you want to look at this, here is the 2020 electorate. You can clearly see here that these Biden +10s, Biden +11s, and then eventually Biden wins the popular vote by just 4 to 5 percentage points. That was roughly in line with what redeaglepatriot had predicted, not what the mainstream media had predicted. 538 was even more off the mark. They had Biden winning the popular vote by 8 to 9 points. he won it by 4.5%. The generic ballot was just 3.2% in favor of the Democrats. I don't know the exact number off of the top of my head, but it was about a point or two closer to even than the presidential result. But still, the polling average errors, 3 points here, 2 points here, 4 points there. It only goes in one direction. These errors, you don't get it in the other way. And that, honestly speaking, is just full-on malpractice. You look at if you look at the crosstabs in the Hill poll, you can clearly look at this. You look at the massive oversample of suburbanites. Where are the independents coming from? Does Joe Biden actually have an approval rating among independent voters, a net approval rating of 61%? I don't think so. And the other voters are at 65%. Now, obviously, could it be 52, 53 among independents? Yeah. I mean, it could be. But this is not healthy, this massive oversample of left-leaning independents, and it skews the results. And you could see this all throughout, but this just proves it. The election mafia caught in 4K, exposed, simping for Joe Biden, when the data that they use is so blatantly skewed, even when weighted to the point where it's laughable. D+9 sample. I don't even know. It's just, at this point, it's laughable. But a lot of people will take it and run with it, and they'll say Biden's approval rating is 59, 60%. The reality is approval rating, even in these polls on issues like immigration, 30s, maybe 40s in these super favorable polls to Biden. The idea that Biden is pushing approval ratings that we haven't seen in this country since, post 9/11 Bush, it doesn't exactly add up, because mainly the honeymoon period largely over. Doesn't really have any policy wins other than signing a stimulus package, which was not the original stimulus package that was promised and had a lot of pork in it. The idea that you're going to see a lot of Republicans that are going to sit here and now magically support Biden. I don't see it on the ground. I don't see it online. You see it only in polls. That's all you see it in. And largely these polls have been wrong time and time and time again, to the point where it's just malpractice. It can't happen. And we'll see what happens in the midterms, because honestly, I'm still expecting an R+2 electorate. Biden's real approval rating, take the outlier polls out, it goes down to 50. It's probably in the 40s. The disapproved people, or the people that are undecided, in many cases have a negative view of Joe Biden, probably didn't vote for him if you actually do the math and add it all up. And if Trump supporters turn out in any capacity in the midterm elections, if Republicans can get 68 million votes in the midterms, which is a realistic possibility, by the way, and the Democrats are held down to 62, 61, 62, kind of where they were in 2018, then Republicans will have a chance to not only take back the House, but, gain 30 or 40 seats in the House, and they'll have a nice little cushion for 2024, and they'll have a lot of momentum to take with them. They'll probably take back the Senate, but the election mafia polls hiding and masking Biden's true approval rating with these outlandish outliers that don't add up, that don't make sense. We're in a very divided nation. If you have all these polls on the right, like Rasmussen would come out and say Trump is a 54, 55% approval rating, well, I criticize them. I say this is not true. We're very divided, and the fact that one poll is vastly ahead of the other polls in the aggregate, not exactly adding up, even though I think that some of the polls were skewing themselves away. But now you're seeing a lot of polls who had a negative bias towards Trump, like CNBC, had Biden up by 10. They were wrong by almost 6 percentage points. Now, these are the same polls that are coming out here that are saying Biden's approval rating is 47. So one of them is telling the truth, and one of them is not. I'm not willing to believe the shill. I'm not willing to believe morning compost. I'm just willing to look into it, acknowledge reality of the situation, and notice the fact that we're too divided as a nation to have a president with an approval rating in the high 50s, early 60s, especially one that doesn't really have a lot of accomplishments. You're not going to convince me that that stimulus bill was as big of an accomplishment as people make it seem, especially because it was not what he promised to the people. And also the fact that you have a massive border crisis that's happening. And even in these polls, it shows that Biden's approval rating on immigration is in the toilet. So there's nothing else to really analyze here, but you look at the samples, you look at who is getting polled, they haven't learned a thing. It has not changed one bit whatsoever. And as a result, we're going to see moving forward, but that's why I'm here. I am the enemy number one of the Election Prediction Mafia, and that is a title that I am extremely proud to claim. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching this video. Please like this video down below, comment down below, and subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell for notifications so you never miss another video. Follow me on social media, links in description. As always, guys, thanks for watching. Red Eagle, out.